There is a certain power in silence, not the silence of passivity or indifference, but the silence of wisdom, the kind of silence that is born of understanding, that holds its tongue not because it is afraid, but because it knows when words would only stir the storm instead of calming it. In the writings of Marcus Aurelius, in the pages of Meditations, you can feel it, not just what he says, but what he doesn't, his restraint, his deliberate distance from argument, from praise, from slander, from the noise of the world. There is a kind of peace in such silence, a discipline not many choose, but one that holds immeasurable strength. It is in that spirit that we reflect deeply on the places in life where silence is not weakness, but wisdom. Where silence is not cowardice, but courage. There are moments when our most powerful move is no move at all. Moments where the tongue held becomes more potent than the sword drawn. The first of these moments is when you are angry. Anger has a voice. It wants to shout, to attack, to justify itself. But Marcus Aurelius reminds us that anger is temporary madness. To speak in anger is to hand over your judgment to your emotions. Words said in fury leave behind scars long after the heat has cooled. Silence in anger is not repression, it is redirection. It is choosing not to let temporary emotions ruin permanent relationships. It is stepping back, letting the fire pass, and then speaking only if there is truth and kindness left to say. In silence you reclaim control over yourself. You no longer belong to your rage. You belong to reason, to dignity, to the higher self that Stoicism teaches you to embody. There is strength in biting your tongue, in waiting for clarity to return before you speak. There is honor in that pause. Not everything needs to be said. Not everything deserves your voice, and especially not when you are burning inside. Another time to remain silent is when someone insults you. The Stoic does not take insult personally. He sees it as the wind blowing leaves, empty, powerless, a reflection of the speaker, not of the one it's aimed at. Marcus Aurelius would tell you that what others say is none of your concern. You cannot control their mouth, but you can control your reaction. To respond to every insult is to declare that your peace depends on their approval, but to remain silent, to let the insult pass like dust in the wind, that is strength. That is power. It is not that you are too weak to respond. It is that you are too strong to be pulled down into their level. What can their words change about your soul, about your values? Nothing. You remain still, unaffected, calm. That is the mark of a philosopher, not in debate, but in self-command. There are also times when silence is wisdom, when you are unsure. In a world that rewards fast answers, confident statements, and quick decisions, the Stoic knows the value of stillness. When you do not yet know the full picture, when facts are incomplete, or your thoughts are tangled, it is better to remain silent. Do not rush to judgment. Do not offer an opinion just to seem informed. Be still, observe, learn. There is a sacred humility in saying nothing until you are certain. Marcus wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." This discipline of thought, this refusal to add noise to noise, is part of what makes Stoic silence so powerful. You don't speak to fill a gap. You speak when there is meaning to be shared. When silence would leave the world poorer, only then do you speak, not to impress, not to perform, but to serve truth. And then there are those moments when others are speaking from pain. Their words might be harsh, even unfair, but they come from wounds, from suffering, from fear. In those moments, silence is not about winning the argument. It's about understanding the human behind the words. You do not always need to correct, defend, or retaliate. Sometimes what a person needs most is someone who simply listens, not to reply, but to understand. The Stoic heart is not cold, it is grounded. Empathy does not require words. Often it requires less of them. Just presence, just calm, just being there fully without inserting yourself into their pain with advice or correction. Silence in this case is not distance. It is closeness without interruption. It is sacred. There is silence, too, when your words would fall on deaf ears, when the person in front of you is not seeking truth, but only to argue, to win, to provoke. Do not waste your peace on such battles. Do not cast your pearls before swine, as the proverb goes. Marcus Aurelius spoke often about focusing on what is within your control. You cannot make someone listen. You cannot make them understand, but you can choose not to engage. You can choose to keep your peace. You can walk away. Your silence speaks volumes. It says you are not interested in the drama, in the ego games, in the endless cycle of reaction. You rise above it. You preserve your dignity, your energy, your time. Sometimes silence is the answer when you are being praised. Compliments, flattery, admiration. These things can be intoxicating, but the Stoic remains indifferent, not because he lacks appreciation, but because he knows that external praise is as unstable as criticism. What matters is virtue, not applause. So when others praise you, thank them with a nod, perhaps a simple word, but don't let it feed your ego. Don't let it define your worth. Silence keeps you grounded. It keeps you focused on the work, not the recognition. You do not speak to magnify your own glory. You stay humble. You stay small in your own eyes, even if the world is trying to make you large. That is where true greatness lives, in silence. There is also silence when you are listening. True listening is rare. Most people only wait for their turn to speak, but the Stoic listens deeply, fully, without agenda, because he seeks wisdom wherever it may be found. To remain silent in the presence of someone who has something to teach, even if they are younger, poorer, less educated, is to recognize the equality of all souls. The Stoic does not care who the messenger is, only whether there is truth in the message. Listening is not passive, it is active, it is a kind of work, and it requires silence, not just of mouth, but of mind. You quiet your assumptions, your need to be right, your hunger to interrupt. You open space for learning. You become a student of life again, and in doing so, you grow. Another kind of silence is internal, the silence of your mind, in a world that never stops shouting. News, opinions, notifications. The Stoic carves out quiet within. He guards his inner citadel. He reflects. He meditates. He journals like Marcus did, not to be read by others but to understand himself. This silence is not emptiness. It is clarity. It is the space where you meet your own soul without distraction, where you return to your principles, where you ask yourself, am I living with purpose? Am I aligning my actions with my values? This silence is sacred. It is your retreat, your armor, your compass, and no one can give it to you. You must create it for yourself, every day. And finally, there is silence in victory, when you have succeeded, when you have overcome, when you have proved your point not with words, but with action. The Stoic does not boast. He does not celebrate loudly. He smiles, perhaps. He thanks fate, thanks the gods, thanks the path. But he does not let success swell his ego. He knows it is temporary, fragile. He knows the wheel turns. So he remains grounded. He continues his work. He speaks less, not more. He lets the results speak for themselves, because the Stoic is not here to impress the world. He is here to live rightly, to live well, to fulfill his duty with integrity and calm. He knows that silence is not absence. It is presence. It is choosing where to place your energy. These 9 silences, practiced consistently, form the foundation of a powerful life. A life that is not tossed around by every emotion, every insult, every temptation to speak. A life that knows when to be still, and in that stillness to find strength. Marcus Aurelius was one of the most powerful men in the world, and yet his writings reveal a man constantly wrestling with his own mind, constantly calling himself to humility, to patience, to silence. He knew that power is nothing without virtue, that noise is nothing without wisdom, that speech is nothing without meaning. We live in a world that rewards loudness, that tells you to brand yourself, to shout your truth, to argue for your place. And yes, there are moments to speak up, to defend the good, to stand for the voiceless, but those moments are rare, and if you speak all the time, your voice loses power. If you argue every time you are challenged, your soul becomes restless. If you fill every space with words, there is no room left for reflection. So choose silence when you are angry, when you are insulted, when you are uncertain, when others are in pain, when truth will not be heard, when you are praised, when you are listening, when you are reflecting, when you have won. In each of these, silence is not absence, it is presence. It is the mark of someone who knows themselves, who does not need the world's noise to confirm their worth, who walks through the chaos with inner calm. Be that person, practice these silences, make them your discipline, let your life speak louder than your words, let your actions carry the weight your voice does not need to. This is the way of the Stoic. This is the power of Marcus Aurelius's silence, and it is yours, too, if you choose it. Let the world shout, let it rage and rush and perform. You be still, be calm, be silent, and in that silence become unshakable.